Yesterday, Sayadaw explained that by practicing Satipatthana meditation, by being mindful of the Nama-Rupa phenomena, which are connected as cause and effect, when one is mindful of them, one sees that all objects give rise to new. Objects are arising at one moment and passing away at another. When one sees the rising and passing away, when one sees the fast arising and passing away, one overcomes Uccheda Ditthi and Sassata Ditthi. Uccheda Ditthi is also called Ditthi. People who believe in nihilism, they hold the wrong view of Uccheda Ditthi. They believe that when a being is living, there are five aggregates of mind and matter, and Jiva Atta, individual soul, is dwelling in the body. And they believe that when one life comes to an end, there is no more Jiva Atta. And that's they believe that there is nothing more after death. So it is called Uccheda Ditthi. Craving onto Uccheda Ditthi, it is called Vipassana. And people who believe in Mahabrahma, they believe that there is Jiva Atta dwelling in Nama-Rupa, mind and matter. And they believe that when the body perishes, Jiva Atta does not perish, but it moves onto the next body. So the believing in continuity of Jiva Atta is called Sassata Ditthi. And because they believe that Jiva Atta is permanent, they do things that will make the Jiva Atta good and pleasant. And they believe that they practice yoga practices, and they believe that when Atta becomes matured, it will finally go to Mahabrahma, they will finally go to the Parama Atta, the Supreme Soul. And there the Atta will get happiness, eternal happiness, boundless happiness. And clinging or craving onto such belief is called Pavadana. When one attains knowledge discerning the fast arising and passing away of the Nama-Rupa, one overcomes such wrong views of Uccheda Ditthi and Sassata Ditthi. When one sees the fast arising and passing away of the object, among the three moments, the beginning, the middle, and the end of objects, only the beginning and the middle will manifest to the yogi who is discerning fast arising and passing away of the object. At this stage of jnana, yogi discerns that all objects give rise to new. It is called Uddiyabaya jnana. And this insight knowledge has two parts. The tender part of Uddiyabaya jnana and the matured stage of Uddiyabaya jnana. At the tender stage of Uddiyabaya jnana, one can still have misunderstanding. At the tender stage of Uddiyabaya jnana, one can misunderstand that it is supramundane knowledge. And at this stage of tender Uddiyapaya Jnana, there can be 10 Vipassanupa Kilesa, 10 impediments of Vipassana. One has to practice further in order to overcome this stage, and finally one will attain the mature stage of Uddiyapaya Jnana. So at the stage of Uddiyapaya Jnana, one overcomes two kinds of Ditthi, namely Uccheda Ditthi and Sassata Ditthi, and two kinds of Tanha, namely Vibhava Tanha and Bhava Tanha. At this stage of Uddiyapaya Jnana, the flavor of Dhamma, the taste of Dhamma will be amazingly special. And at this stage, yogi gains Sambodha Sukha. By discerning the fast arising and passing away of the object, yogi feels joy and satisfaction. But still, there are many stages of knowledge ahead. One has to keep on practicing. There are things more joyful than at this stage of Uddiyapaya Jnana. The yogi who had reached the stage of Uddiyapaya Jnana is called Arata Vipassaka, a diligent yogi. So a diligent yogi must possess the initial effort, and effort boosts up effort in order to dispel laziness. One should boost up effort in order to overcome laziness, and one should exert effort stage by stage until one finally reaches one's goal. So the person who possesses 3 stages of viriya is called Arata Vipassaka, and the person, yogi, is the true yogi. So a true yogi is the one who possesses all 3 stages of effort. Yoga is the effort, and the person who possesses 3 stages of effort, which is called yoga, the person who possesses them is called yogi. One should be mindful of every arising object, and thus one will discern impermanence. The objects, they arise and pass away. When one sees the arising and passing away, one knows that it is no good and it is suffering. Seeing arising and passing away, one realizes that there is no atta that is permanent. One will no longer believe in atta. By seeing cause and effect, by understanding the characteristics of impermanent suffering and non-self clearly, at this stage, one sees even the small movements in the very detail. At this stage of the practice, at this stage of Uddiyapaya Jnana, yogi does not miss or fail to note objects. Every object is being noted by the yogi. And at this stage, the 2 truths, dukkha satya and samudaya satya, the truth of suffering and the truth of origin of suffering, which are difficult to be discerned because they are deep and profound. But at this stage, yogi sees that every object, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, sitting, touching, everything, yogi can note them even in the smallest details. And these will be very clear to the yogi as he/she is mindful of even the very small details. Seeing the impermanence, seeing the characteristic of impermanent suffering and non-self, seeing the truth, one will no longer believe in atta, that is good or pleasant. One will no longer believe that things are permanent, good or pleasant. In this way, tasna, craving, will be removed. At times, the mind is so subtle, the mind becomes so pure and subtle that one even thinks that he/she no longer have kilesa, defilement. Based on the objects that the yogi can note properly, based on the objects, yogi can note effectively. Yogi sees the dissolving of the object, yogi sees the passing away of the object, and thus yogi will no longer crave onto these objects. In this way, discerning dukkha satta, truth of suffering, one will no longer crave. Craving is also removed, and thus yogi discerns the two truths, dukkha satta and samudaya satta, truth of suffering and truth of origin of suffering. Even though these two truths are difficult to be discerned because they are deep and profound, but at this stage of practice, yogi discerns these two truths clearly. And at this stage, Vipassana samadhi becomes strong, and one is developing Pubbabhaga Magga, preliminary path. One is building up the preliminary path of vehicle. The vehicle, one is said to be developing the vehicle of this preliminary path. And when one pursues one's practice, Vipassana jnana becomes matured, and finally one attains Ariya Magga Phala jnana, path and fruition knowledge, and one attains Nibbana. When one attains Nibbana, one realizes Nirodha Satta, the truth of cessation. One develops Magga Satta, the truth of this noble path leading to the cessation, and also one realizes Nibbana. By realizing Nibbana, one also discerns, one also attains Nirodha Satta, the truth of cessation. In this way, the two truths, Magga Satta and Nirodha Satta, will be very obvious to the yogi. It is said that it is supakata. The true truths of Nirodha Satta and Magga Satta becomes outstandingly obvious to the yogi. And when one realizes Nibbana, one also builds Ariya Magga jnana, the vehicle of the noble path. Sarati gives an example. People who travel around the world, they have to travel from one port to another. They have to stop at some places for transit. They have got to stop over at transit points in order to catch connecting flights and so on. So when traveling, the traveler has to stop at various stopovers for transit, catching connecting flights. In the same way, when yogi is traveling on the journey to Nibbana, yogi has to take various kind of vehicles, and yogi has to stop at various stops. When the yogi gets to the Uddiyabaya Jnana, and one has to continue practicing Vipassana, one has to take this Vipassana jhana, vehicle of Vipassana, in order to reach the destination of Nibbana. And one has to take Magga jhana, one has to take the vehicle of Magga, and one develops Vipassana jhana stage by stage, and finally one attains cessation, one attains Nibbana. Sayadaw will not explain all the Vipassana jhana, all the insight knowledges in detail, but Sayadaw will only give some hint. And Sayadaw will not explain in detail how Nibbana is attained, because if Sayadaw explains in detail how Nibbana is realized, at some point of practice, when yogi experiences some similar experiences, yogi can misunderstand it as Nibbana. And if the yogi misunderstands it as Nibbana, yogi may stop and rest without going further in his or her practice. It is important to practice further, it is important to practice diligently. And if the yogi misunderstands, then it can be a danger in the practice. It is called Dhammantaraya. It's a danger in the practice where the yogi holds high esteem of himself, herself, thinking that he, she has attained the supramundane knowledge. That's why Sayadaw will not explain all these Vipassana jhana, all these insight knowledges, or the realization of Nibbana in detail. But Sayadaw just explained briefly that the Lokiya Satya, the two truths, Dukkha Satya and Samudaya Satya, the truth of suffering and the truth of origin of suffering, these two Lokiya Satya, these two mundane kind of truths, are difficult to be discerned because they are profound. And the two Lokuttara Satya, the two supramundane truths, they are profound and thus difficult to be discerned. But when one overcomes the three rounds, Kilesa Vata, Kama Vata, and Vipaka Vata, round of defilement, rounds of action, and round of resultants, when one overcomes these three rounds, these satyas, these truths will be obvious to the yogi in detail, very clearly. By discerning Dukkha Satya, by discerning the truth of suffering, one removes Samudaya Satya, one removes the truth of origin, the origin of suffering. So by discerning the truth of suffering, one removes the Samudaya, the origin of suffering. And by practicing Riya Magga, by practicing Magga Satya, by practicing the path, one discerns Nirodha Satya, one attains Nirodha Satya when one realizes cessation. So by developing Riya Magga, by developing supramundane path, one realizes Nibbana. Even though the two kinds of supramundane truth, Magga Satya and Nirodha Satya, even though they are profound, but when one overcomes, when one removes the defilements, one can discern them. Even though they are very profound, when one removes the defilements, one will discern these truths. So by practicing Satipatthana meditation, by being mindful of every arising object, one will be removing the kilesa defilements of avijja, tanha and upadana, ignorance, craving and clinging. And by removing these defilements, one will discern dukkha satya, one will discern the truth of suffering, one will remove samudaya, the origin of suffering, and one will discern nirodha satya, the truth of cessation, and also one develops magga satya, the truth of path leading to cessation. Even though these truths are profound, when one overcomes the defilements, these truths will be discerned by the yogi. In order to remove kilesa suffering, one needs to practice systematically, correctly, according to the correct method, and it is called Sammapatipatti. Sammapatipatti means practicing correctly, practicing systematically, according to the correct method. So it is very important to practice correctly so as to remove the opposite states, which are the kilesa defilements. It means that without practicing systematically, one will never remove the kilesa defilements. Without correct practice, one can never overcome these defilements of avijja, tanha and upadana, ignorance, craving and clinging. Removing these kilesa defilements, one should practice systematically so as to remove these defilements. And in order to practice correctly, one should listen to the guidance and instruction given by the wise in order to remove these kilesa defilements. So that's why in order to remove the kilesa defilements, one should listen attentively on the guidance and instructions given by the wise. By listening attentively on the guidance and instructions given by the wise, one will be able to practice correctly and systematically. By practicing systematically, correctly, one can remove these defilements of avijja, tanha and upadana. One can remove these ignorance, craving and clinging, and thus the four truths will manifest to the yogi. The four truths will be obvious to the yogi. Among the suffering, the one which plays the most important role is kilesa vata, the round of defilement. In order to cut the round of defilements, one should practice systematically according to the correct guidance. It is called saddhammasavana. One should listen to the instruction and guidance given by the wise in order to practice systematically. In order to practice systematically, one should learn the correct method. It is called saddhammasavana. In the word saddhamma, there is sang, sa, together with the word Dhamma. So it is not ordinary kind of Dhamma. Sa means totally extinguished kilesa round, kilesa defilement round. Sa means totally free from kilesa defilement. It means that even though one comes across desirable objects, there will not be greed. Even though one comes across undesirable objects, there will not be anger, hatred, or delusion. The one that is totally free from defilements is called Sat. Whatever object that arises, one should there will not be delusion, there will not be wrong knowing or knowing wrongly, and there will not be craving or clinging. The one who is totally free from these defilements of avijja, tanha, and upadana, ignorance, craving, and clinging, is called Sat. Without knowing things that should be known, one cannot remove these defilements. One should develop knowledge so that one will totally eradicate these defilements. By attaining Ariya Magga, by attaining Ariya Magga, path knowledge, by attaining Arahata Magga Phala, by attaining the last stage of path and fruition knowledge, one is called Sanda, the one who is totally free from defilements, the one who has totally uprooted, eradicated all the defilements, and such person is called Sanda. From the word Sanda, the word Sa is extracted, and this Sa means the one who has eradicated, who has totally eradicated all the defilements. So Sa is the person who is totally extinguished all the defilements, and such person is worthy of honor and respect, and such person is wise. The person, Dhamma, the person who is totally free from this kilesa defilement, the Dhamma taught by such person, the Dhamma taught by such praiseworthy person is called Satthamma. So the Arahats, Buddha and Arahats, their teaching are called Satthamma. Buddha was totally free from kilesa defilement. Buddha's teachings are called Satthamma, and they are the correct teachings, correct instruction and guidance. Buddha found this Dhamma. Buddha found the Dhamma, which is totally correct, and Buddha founded this true, correct practice. And by practicing accordingly to the teaching, one can also overcome these defilements. One can totally eradicate these defilements by practicing accordingly, correctly, according to the correct guidance. So the one whoever practices systematically, correctly, according to the correct guidance, the person can eradicate kilesa defilements. By following, by practicing accurately according to the guidance given, one can totally be free from kilesa defilements. Other kinds of belief, it is not the same. The instruction and the result may not be in accordance. Even though one follow the instruction of other beliefs, one cannot get benefit. But practicing according to the Satthamma, practicing accurately according to the correct guidance and instruction, one can totally be free from kilesa defilement, because the teaching is correct and the practice is correct. It means that there is no lacking, there is no shortcoming whatsoever. The teachings are given correctly. It is called Sassata. It is taught by Buddha himself. Buddha found it this way because Buddha himself practiced this way. That's why the method is correct. By practicing accordingly, by practicing accurately, according to the correct guidance and instruction, one will get true benefit. There is no doubt about it. If one follows the instruction to refrain from misconduct, one's body and speech will be pure and clean. By refraining from misconduct, one will surely be pure by body and speech. So that means by following the guidance accurately, one will get benefit that is accurate. One will also get definite benefit by practicing accurately. So one should practice conduct, good conduct. One should refrain from misconduct, so that one will not meet one will not meet harm. There will not be suffering physically and mentally. It is called Sassata. It is correct teaching. The teaching taught correctly and accurately. By practicing accordingly to the teaching, one will get benefit. One should practice sila, morality, and one should also be mindful. One should put effort to note the presently arising object so that kilesa defilement will not arise. When there is sustained mindfulness, the mind will be calm and collected on the object. The mind will not go astray. When viriya is present, effort does not accept kilesa defilements from arising. Having mindfulness sati, the mind is guarded, protected away from these defilements. Having samadhi concentration, the mind is calm, collected, and unified. So by practicing accordingly to the correct guidance, one will gain benefits. So the practice is taught by the Buddha. Buddha taught the Dhamma that can extinguish these kilesa defilements. And by practicing according to the teaching, one can be totally free from kilesa defilement. If one practices diligently according to the teachings, one will develop knowledge stage by stage. When one's noting mind is concurrent with the object of meditation, when one's noting mind falls calm and collected on the object, one will discern mind and matter, cause and effect, and when one discerns the characteristics of impermanent suffering and non-self, one develops knowledge, one develops Vipassana jnana, stage by stage, and it is called Vipassana samadhi. It is right view of Vipassana. By practicing accurately according to the guidance, one will get results, one will get benefit. One's body, speech, and mind will become pure, clean, gentle, cultured, and lovable. So Buddha taught the method, Buddha taught the way, because Buddha himself practiced, Buddha himself eradicated all these defilements, and Buddha was worthy of honor and respect. Because Buddha taught the way that Buddha himself practiced, one should practice according to the teaching given by the Buddha. And in order to practice correctly, during the Buddha time, there were people who named themselves as people who have eradicated kilesa defilements. So there were 6 teachers who were giving guidance and instruction, but actually they were not free from defilements. They have not eradicated these defilements. So the teachings of these teachers did not bring the according results. So the result and the teaching are not in accordance. And these teachers were not worthy of praise, respect, and they were not wise people. Buddha had eradicated all these defilements by Arahata Magga, Jnana. Buddha eradicated all these defilements by attaining the last path and fruition, knowledge. Buddha was totally free from defilements, and thus Buddha was worthy of praise, respect, praise, honor, and respect. And Buddha was the topmost person among the wise. Because Buddha himself practiced this way, Buddha eradicated all these defilements, so the teachings given by the Buddha was very accurate and precise. There is no shortcoming in the teaching. By practicing according to the teachings given by the Buddha, one will get results accordingly. What Buddha taught was totally correct. Buddha's instructions and guidance were very precise, accurate, and correct. It is said that Santo so bhagava samataya dhammandeseti. It means that after Buddha eradicated all these defilements, Buddha taught so that other beings can eradicate all the defilements. And Buddha taught especially so that beings can eradicate all these defilements. So what is most important is to cut the round of defilements in order to be free from suffering. In order to cut the round of defilements, one should listen to Saddhamma, one should listen to the guidance and instructions given by the wise. And today Saraji explained that in the word Saddhamma, Sa comes from the word Sanda. And Saraji has to explain about the word Dhamma. Dhamma means the practice that uplifts, supports, and helps and protect the person who practices accordingly. And Saraji will continue to explain tomorrow. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.